It's beautiful. There's music. Who's down there? That's great. With that, we'll close the door. Okay, guys, so you can hear. Good morning and thank you, everyone. I am delighted to be here today with Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, our Secretary of Technology Services and Security, Jason Snyder, Secretary of Administration and Finance, Matt Gorzkowicz, Secretary of Education, Dr. Pat Tutwiler, and Commissioner of Early Education and Child Care, Amy Kershaw, was going to be with us, but was pulled away. Where is she? Oh, you're in the back? Okay, great. Well, Amy is here. Good. Welcome. And I see Rep. Farley Bouvier and a few other folks. Nice to see you, including our Comptroller, Bill McNamara. Thank you very much, sir. We also want to welcome here at the podium our Danvers Town Manager, Steve Bartha, and Amy O'Leary from Strategies for Children. We're here today to announce the filing of the Future Tech Bond Bill. Future Tech is a 5-year, $1.2 billion investment in our information technology systems. We are committed to making sure that this state government is more accessible, more effective for our residents and for our businesses, as well as for visitors to Massachusetts. Critical to that mission is making sure that our IT systems are up to date, safe, secure, and easy to use. These investments, advanced through this bond bill, will help us achieve those goals. They will allow us to integrate and improve the user experience across all of our services. They will help us advance digital accessibility and the equity work that we've already engaged in and announced last summer in partnership with the disability community. They will also strengthen our cybersecurity to protect public assets and private information. This bill will advance the work underway to modernize areas like health records, unemployment insurance, public safety data, and so much more. A good example of the kind of impact that this will have is in our child care financial assistance portal. We know that improving user experience there will make it easier for families to get help with their child care costs. This has been something that's been a part of our affordability agenda since we started. Amy's going to share more about how that will work. In the end, this is about making Massachusetts more competitive and more affordable, as well as more equitable. This bond bill, Future Tech, will put us in a stronger position to take advantage of new technologies like artificial intelligence in ways that benefit our residents, that benefit our states, that benefit our businesses. This makes us a more competitive state to live in and do business in. We recently released our economic development plan called Leading Future Generations, where we set out a clear vision of our state's leadership into the future. That vision has to be reflected across all of government and, importantly, in IT. IT is no longer just a layer of state government. In many ways, it is the basic backbone and infrastructure that enables all of government to go forward and work. It's also the place where residents engage. An innovative state like Massachusetts must lead, must be at the forefront in terms of providing world-class customer experience and accessibility. So I'm just really grateful to Secretary Snyder, who has come into this position, done tremendous work over the last year with his team, and once again he's doing it now by delivering us this Future Tech Bond Bill. I also want to thank our colleagues in Administration and Finance, Senator Gorzkowicz, for their work in working with the Secretary and his team to bring this forward. We look forward to the legislature's thoughtful consideration and feedback on this important bill, and with that, I'd like to turn it over to our Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. Thanks, Governor. And I want to extend my thanks as well to all of the teammates who have worked on this issue. There's a lot of technical and complex issues incorporated into this bond bill and the work that we're going to be able to do. But ultimately, it's going to make it easier for both residents and business owners. And I'm certainly coming at this as a former local official. You know, we've got 351 cities and towns who all have some sort of an IT system to run, whether it's a worry about cybersecurity, helping residents get online. For so many of our communities, your internet service is your front door into services that you rely on. And so supporting cities and towns is a big part of this IT bond bill. The Future Tech legislation will help us provide $25 million for Community Compact IT grant programs. Steve knows a little bit about that. In fact, probably the poster child for using those resources. That's going to help us drive innovation at the local level, make local governments more efficient, and provide them the technical expertise they need and the resources to partner with local taxpayers' money to ensure that they have the sort of system they need when it comes to information technology on the ground. Then we've got $30 million for the Municipal Fiber Grant Program. Seems simple, but actually connecting systems, helping cities and towns close those final gaps between fire stations, police stations, public safety, schools. It's a really key need. There'll be resources to help with that. I think we all understand the role that technology plays in delivering governmental services, and it really does impact the quality of life for people, for businesses, for access. It's important to recognize that it takes this sort of hard work and long-term commitment and planning when you have an IT plan in place to be able to have the resources to implement and operationalize that is really critical. And that's what future tech is going to help do. That's what these investments are about, making us as a Commonwealth a place that can make sure we're focused on the challenges that lie ahead. And there are a lot. If you talk to municipal leaders, there's always opportunities for their systems to be improved, and also challenges when it comes to making sure their systems are not accessible to the wrong people. So we're pleased to be able to offer these resources, submit this legislation, and help make our communities stronger, more successful, and more accessible. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Secretary, Jason Snyder.
Thank you, LG. I would like to start by thanking the Healey Driscoll team for recognizing the urgent nature of the priorities that are contained in this legislation, and also recognizing the work done by the ANF team to set up the EOTS Secretariat for Success as we worked on this critical legislation we're unveiling today. When we think of IT, we might think of back offices and back-end business functions. I am here to tell you that is no longer the case. IT used to exist separate from policymaking, and would be used to implement policy already enacted or facilitate business already transacted. Today, however, information technology is a fundamental driver for policy creation, not just implementation. Today, providing services on behalf of the people of Massachusetts means doing IT. And as such, modernized government services mean modernized IT systems. The former cannot exist without the latter. And the far wide-ranging projects contained in this authorization show just that. I'd like to highlight just a few examples to underscore the real material benefit of this authorization to drive policy and good government. When I think of IT driving policy, I first think of the digital roadmap that Governor Healey launched last year to align the various state agency services under a single portal with a single identity access management system. With 1 million Commonwealth users enrolled to date, the platform will scale as more users enroll, enabling greater personalization, accessibility, and integrated services over time as it incorporates more agencies and centralizes now disparate systems. This funding will also allow the modernization of our permitting and licensing systems to support a modern centralized licensing solution that will improve the constituent and stakeholder experience by streamlining business operations and enhancing customer service, all of which will result in faster processing of permits and licenses. As Amy O'Leary is going to discuss just a little later, the Future Tech Act supports parents seeking child care financial assistance. But I did want to mention another key education investment, the Early Education to Career Data Hub, which will provide anonymized data and research on student progress from early care and education settings through their K through 12 education and into higher education and the workforce. This information can be made available to school districts, families, and the community, other state agencies, and research and policy organizations to allow for improved data analysis and better decision making. The project to modernize our unemployment insurance process provides the ability for people to get back to work and access needed training. In addition to modernizing the Department of Unemployment Assistance operations and the underlying technology systems for DUA transactions, the Future Tech Act allows initiatives to assist workers in gaining new, more personally desirable and higher paying jobs through direct online access. Together, these measures improve the user experience while ensuring that both the DUA and the Mass Hire Department of Career Services run efficiently. Additionally, the bond authorization allows Massachusetts to be forward-looking and widen our lead in artificial intelligence by harnessing the technology, workforce, and higher education ecosystems that exist here to use AI to enhance the delivery of state government services to the public we serve. In closing, we see this authorization as a vehicle to make a real difference for families as they interact with the Commonwealth for services. It is our mission to bring the benefits of government IT systems innovation to all residents of Massachusetts, and that means IT accessibility needs to be front of mind as we tackle these challenges. EOTS is proud to advance the Healey Driscoll priority of access and inclusion to the IT space. Now, I want to turn it over to a friend in this work, Danvers Town Manager Steve Bartha, who can speak to the municipal significance of this legislation. We know that big initiatives like this work best when state and local officials work together. I've had the pleasure of visiting Danvers and meeting with the town manager and their talented IT director, Colby Cousins, who is doing extraordinary work to regionalize and deliver professional IT services through the North Shore IT Collaborative. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary and Governor. We don't like to use Colby's real name, though. We use an alias because we're afraid he's going to get poached from us before we're ready to be done with him. It's a privilege to be part of this program today. It's also an honor to be representing the incredible work that's happening on the North Shore in regional IT and cybersecurity. I call it a privilege because, as the Secretary alluded to, Danvers knows firsthand just how powerful it can be to have the state as a partner in this critical work. We know that the exciting investments being discussed today in local IT infrastructure and capacity building across the Commonwealth will be as powerful in other regions as it has been in ours. Over the past half-decade, Danvers has led a coalition of 7 communities in Essex County to develop a regional IT model, including Essex, Hamilton, Manchester by the Sea, Middleton, Topsfield, and Wenham. The MAPC has been a partner, and more recently, Maya has been a partner in the cybersecurity arena. But the most important partner by far has been the state through its Community Compact program. To date, our coalition has received just over $1 million in compact funding to cover things like the fiber infrastructure that has been rolled out across the North Shore. We used the compact grant years ago to do a study that resulted in the IT department we have today, and a separate compact to establish our strategic IT regional plan, which is nearly complete in its implementation. The investment in compact dollars leveraged several $1 million more in local funds appropriated by town meetings in the town so that we could execute this strategy. Our model is built on a backbone of intermunicipal fiber, shared staffing, shared data centers, shared disaster recovery services, and most recently a multi-layered cybersecurity fabric that's in place across the region, which has been tested and stood up to potential attacks within the last year. The capital investment provided through the Compact program accelerated the building out and beefing up of our shared infrastructure, but more importantly, it laid the groundwork for the regional operating model that now exists on top of that infrastructure. Our smaller communities are now less dependent on vendors for strategic IT decision-making. They're safer, and they enjoy better service at a lower cost than would otherwise be possible going on their own. And Danvers is able to defray some of its own ongoing operating costs without impacting our own internal services. And if I'm being honest, it's also just plain fun to be working on something that's innovating and different, because a lot of what we do is the same from year to year, and this is new, and it's fun. But we wouldn't be doing any of it without our partners in Boston, so we want to thank them. And we also want to say here's to many more years of success and progress that is sure to be unlocked by the programs being discussed this morning and the provisions laid out in the Future Tech Act. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Amy O'Leary, Executive Director of Strategies for Children, to the podium.
Thank you, and what a pleasure to be here today. I started my career as a preschool teacher at the Ellis Early Learning in South End of Boston, and like many early educators, I was soon promoted to be a program director. As a preschool teacher, I was honored and humbled to work in partnership with families, watching their children grow and learn. As a center director, I became more interested in how policies were made and wondered who made the decisions that impacted children, families, and the whole early childhood system. I learned about eligibility, state median income percentiles, consecutive pay stubs, and all the documentations that families needed to access financial support as I enrolled children into my program. I learned all of that from the families that we served over the years. That experience has informed the last 2 decades of my work at Strategies for Children, an advocacy and policy organization. I come to this work as an advocate and an early educator. Usually I am testifying or sharing remarks about increasing educator salaries, developmentally appropriate curriculum, access for families, and the importance of high-quality early education for children and communities. I am usually not invited to speak at IT events. That's why it's so exciting to be here to talk about the system that supports the system and just how critical these IT improvements are to improving the lives of children and families. As part of this bill, we hope for the authorization of new capital investments, including $12 million to support the Child Care Financial Assistance Modernization Project. This authorization is important to delivering on our affordability, accessibility, and equity goals around early education and care. We know that the Department of Early Education and Care has a huge directive, and currently the work to support these important goals uses multiple systems. We've also seen a growing need for state agencies to work collaboratively on early childhood issues. Currently, families seeking care, educators providing care, and providers running businesses that connect the two must navigate multiple systems just to accomplish one task. The authorization of these capital funds will allow the Commonwealth to make significant and much-needed investments, which could include updates and streamlining to the wait list, the case management system, and subsidy tracking for the payment system. This upgrade would also raise the effectiveness of EEC's IT system so that it is on par with other state agencies, allowing for better collaboration. This sector needs the best cutting-edge technology in order for the system to function at the level that we all need it to achieve our collective goals for children. We know that having access to financial assistance can be the difference between a parent being able to go to work and a child experiencing a high-quality experience before kindergarten. We are grateful to Governor Healey, Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, Secretary Tutwiler, Commissioner Amy Kershaw, and members of the administration for this investment. The COVID-19 pandemic shined an important light on the early childhood ecosystem in Massachusetts and created opportunities for systematic change. Infrastructure matters. This capital project is critical to actualizing the lessons that we've learned. By updating the outdated technology systems, we expect that EEC will be able to serve families more effectively and equitably and to pay providers in a more timely fashion for financial stability. We look forward to supporting this important work with our partners across the state so that we can all see the system that we know that young children and families need in the Commonwealth. I'd like to welcome Governor Healey back to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for your comments. Thank you in particular to Steve and Amy for joining us this morning to really, explain why these numbers, why these movements really matter, and how we expect and want them to play out in the lives of folks across the state and the way we do business here, the way we engage with our municipalities. So, really excited to have you here this morning. Happy to open with questions on topic related to the Future Tech Act.
Governor, is state borrowing of this size justifiable considering budget cuts yesterday and revenue headwinds moving forward?
Oh, absolutely. It's not only justifiable, it's absolutely imperative. I mean, we need to make investments in our technology. And let's be clear about separating out a few things, because I think there's been a lot of conflation of movements recently. First of all, the tax cuts. The tax cuts were absolutely essential. We, as an administration, have said from the outset, we're about making Massachusetts more affordable and more competitive. I'm proud of the tax cuts. I'm proud of the fact that this spring, seniors are going to see a doubling of the circuit breaker, money back in their pockets. Families this spring are going to see the most generous tax credit in the entire country, money back in their pockets. These were all efforts to make life more affordable for folks in the state. We accomplished that with the tax package, 70% of that tax package going to lower and middle income families across Massachusetts. That's real savings, that's really important, and it's a delivery on a promise that we made. When it comes to the recent, what I'll call rebalancing, I mean, look, you're probably going through this at home too. It's the end of the year, the start of the new year. We all take a look at our bank statements, and we see how we did and where we're spending money. And as you know, this year it turned out that we saw a little bit less in revenue than we'd seen in years past, where we've seen really record revenues. I just want to remind people of our extremely high bond rating here in the state and of our record rainy day fund right now, our stabilization fund. So that's very healthy for where we are as a state. That said, we did see a drop in revenue, particularly, as we closed the year, and that's why it was fiscally responsible and appropriate for us to do an assessment and make certain reductions for purposes of rebalancing the budget. That's what we did with the $375 million in reductions announced the other day. As you know, we'll see some of you next week, and we will be filing a budget shortly thereafter. I'm excited about the investments that we're making through the fiscal year 25 budget, which will make Massachusetts more affordable, more competitive, and more equitable, continuing on with what we need to do. But to get back to today's bond bill filing, it's like anything else. If you don't take care of your house and you don't take care of your foundation, things crumble and fall apart. They become a lot more expensive to fix later on, and they don't meet the times that we're in. This is absolutely essential investment in infrastructure. And as governor of Massachusetts, I'm committed to making sure that Massachusetts leads the way, as we should, when it comes to technology. Technology that will improve people's lives, that will improve the way that we engage with businesses, with residents, and deliver service. And again, gratitude to Secretary Snyder, Secretary Gorzkowicz, and their teams for delivering this important future tech bond bill.
Can you and the Secretary explain just how a borrowing bill of this size fits into the budget picture? Like, how do you manage $1.2 billion in borrowing when revenues are coming in lower than expected?
I'm going to invite Secretary Gorzkowicz up. I'm pretty simple, and the way I think of it is this. You separate out what we have in an operating budget, which is what we're talking about with the expenditures and with some of the reductions recently, from a capital budget. And one of the things that it shows the strength of our fiscal standing right now as a state is the fact that we're able to propose a bond bill, which is basically the vehicle that will allow us to borrow money, and then use that money to make these investments. So I think it's a sign of strength that we're able to propose a Future Tech Act, a bond bill for IT that's $1.2 billion. I see the comptroller shaking his head, right? I'm not out at, yeah, okay. So it's a strength of this state, and it's important, and I'm glad you raised it. We've got to separate out these bond bills, which are about our ability to service debt and borrow money to make smart, strategic, fiscally responsible investments for the state from what we do with managing revenue coming in and out and, expenditures for programming and services. But Secretary Gorzkowicz.
I would just add a couple of things to what the governor said, because I think she was spot on. This authorization is a 5-year authorization. So we need to think about the authorizations needed to make our IT investments over the next 5 years. And that's true with any bond bill we filed. We filed a housing bond bill just recently, and that's also a 5-year authorization. So when we think about our capital budget, which is separate and distinct from our operating budget, we need to think long-term, and we need to think about what authorizations need to be in place over those years. With respect to the operating budget, sure, we budget for debt service, and we size our debt service based on what our planned borrowing is over those periods of time. We do a 5-year capital plan that we update every year and make revisions as necessary. But this is separate than the operating budget, and again, it's a 5-year authorization. It looks ahead, and the amount of debt service that we budget for in the operating budget supports these various bond bills, not just the IT bond bill, over that period of time.
Secretary, are you concerned at all that the revenue shortfall will affect the state's bond rating to borrow more money in the future, including from something like this?
Well, I think the bond rating is something we monitor very carefully, and I think we'll look at that as we're in the market now to issue some debt, and see we work very closely with the Treasurer's Office and all 3 of the rating agencies. I think what the rating agencies look for is swift and decisive action. They want to make sure that we're on top of it and that we're managing it responsibly. And I think the actions that the administration took yesterday show exactly that. It shows that we're monitoring the situation, we're taking action when action is necessary to do the proper belt tightening, we're preserving the state's rainy day fund, and I think those things are all credit positives, which the rating agencies will recognize in the actions we've taken.
Governor, what's your message to residents across the Commonwealth who are concerned with these tax cuts, maybe it affecting them personally?
My message to residents about, well, the tax cuts are one thing, right? I spoke to the tax cuts we did earlier this year, which is actually about making sure that money is going back in people's pockets, whether you're a renter or senior or, a family with kids at home or dependents at home. The reductions that we made yesterday, look, no one likes to have to make reductions, right? But at a time when, residents are going to the grocery store and everything they pull off a shelf right now seems to cost $5, and if not $5, it's $4. We're also mindful of that in government, and we have a responsibility to protect taxpayer money, to do so in a way that we take care of the most vulnerable among us. If you look at the overall size of the budget for last year and the $375 million in reductions, it's quite small, right, compared to the overall package. But I know it's meaningful for everybody affected. That said, this administration, and I want residents to hear this, we made sure that we made no cuts to our municipalities, no cuts to education, and we took steps to make sure that we were protecting the most vulnerable among us at a time when we know a lot of people, are struggling still with affordability. But this administration, this team, is going to continue to stay laser focused on making life more affordable for our residents, making the state more competitive, making the state more equitable. And also, there will be no cuts to or changes. For example, when you look at some of the changes within Health and Human Services, the team, really did their homework and dug in to look to see where we could find savings. In some instances, usage for certain programs was lower than anticipated. So with that lower utilization, we were able to take that reduction as a savings, as a cost savings. Also, when it comes to things like Mass Health, there are no cuts to services. There are no changes in eligibility. Again, we were looking hard, and again, I credit the A&F team, to go through the books, to go through the numbers, in this belt tightening exercise, in this rebalancing exercise, to make some calls about where we could find savings. Thank you.
There's $400 million also in the bill for Health and Human Services and federal spending. Can you clarify what exactly that was for?
Sure.
So the bond bill totals $1.2 billion in authorizations that will be used to fund the IT projects that are being highlighted here today. There is a provision that allows us to capture federal reimbursement on some of these projects. So projects that we fund for, say, Mass Health or some of the human service agencies also come with federal reimbursement. It's not an authorization. We don't plan on any issuing debt on that $400 million. It's just a provision that allows us to collect that reimbursement and apply it to the IT projects for which we will issue debt on our share. So it's just a provision that allows for that, and it's been filed here. And we've been working with the Comptroller's Office to make sure we can accurately capture that revenue, which is much needed in order to, again, support some of those projects for which the federal government will share in the expense.
Could you give some examples of what those projects are?
Offhand, I would think like HICS.
Yeah,
right?
so we
Health
have
Information
health
System.
information exchange. We have electronic health records that are coming out with this project. We are also actively working on IT modernization across the OHHS. They have many systems that haven't been modernized in some time. So, for example, we have a mainframe system for Mass Health eligibility called MA21. That is also being modernized as part of the process.
Thanks, everyone.